Good morning. How are you this morning? I hope that you guys are doing very well. And last week I went to the Phoenix. That's a little bit different from LA. I think that the elevation is a little bit higher than LA, and somehow, yeah, I can feel how different because my body told me, my body tells me, and kind of, yeah, I feel like sick, but I'm not sick. And almost I spent a week there because my daughter moved to Phoenix, and then I went to help her to be settled down there. And it's really different from LA, but people are really nice. I don't know how diverse the city is, but people are really nice, and it's a really good city and growing city. But a lot of people, yeah, complain about people are moving in because everything is going up, right? And housing price is going up, and basically, so everything is really expensive, and sometimes taxes are higher than Orange County, and let's say LA County, but if you see that go to market, and if you go to see the other things, and then not that much difference from here, but still it's really expensive. That's what I observed. But so wherever you go, and people are different, but it's really the living is the same. And living in LA is different from living in Chicago. So weather is different, and maybe diversity is different, and eating is different, but still people's lives are same in different conditions. And just think about the Greek philosophies, and then the Roman philosophies. Because of the direction of life and direction of the political system, maybe depends on the values, and then the philosophies kind of change into the society. And then maybe they change the philosophy of the direction of the philosophy, and then apply to their values and direction of the countries, nations, and then So what I found in Roman philosophy, why I'm preparing for the lectures, and then Greek philosophers really emphasize, and maybe they develop into the curiosity, and how to explain the being, and absolute beings, and all kind of phenomena. But Roman philosophy is a little bit different. They a lot of philosophers and really focus on the lives, ethics. So they think about what's the purpose of philosophy. It's not that abstract, but try to try to apply the theory to their daily life. That is kind of difference. And then still, if you remember the trend, trend of the philosophy in Hellenistic period, and then skepticism, two kind of skepticism is there, and then Epicuricism, and then Stoicism is there. But still, it's kind of influence and Roman Empire and philosophers, and sometimes emperor, and then they kind of develop the philosophy in their own things. So from today maybe next class, and then we're gonna see what are the Roman philosophers thinking, and try to write. and what are their philosophies, right? And so maybe I don't know how much you guys remember from the past lectures, but still, maybe I try to give you some differences and how they developed. And yeah, that's a basic concept that I have. But one thing is that discussing about the Roman philosophers, and then we consider how Christian, early Christian thinkers developed their own theologies and doctrines, and then without the cultural influence and the Greek influence and Roman influence and Greco-Roman influence, and we cannot explain, because some part of the Bible kind of dealing with the kind of the philosophies, and then others, and then think about if you study philosophy, if you study interest in metaphysics, and then their interest, they influenced by and other philosophers, and then their kind of mind is influenced by them, and they are thinking a little bit different, and they have different aspect, and then maybe they try to explain the Christianity in different angles, aspect, and which is different from the traditional understanding. So today let's see what is the basic ideas of the Roman philosophers. First, we're gonna see the Marcus Cicero's, and then he is around born is like 106 BC, and then like this, and around 43 BC. He born the right but he was Roman. He's a little different, and his politicians and lawyers and kind of Roman statesmen and the philosophers, but his basic idea, kind of direction of thinking is a little bit based on the what? So academic skepticism. What is academic skepticism? So kind of skepticism, but influence, kind of the base on the Platonism, right? So really different from the pluralism. Pluralism really radical, but the academic skepticism is a little bit moderate. So he tried to uphold the optimistic principle during this political crisis that led to the establishment of the Roman Empire, and he's the guy. So not that many works on philosophies, but he taught a lot of philosophers and Greek philosophers, and I mean the Hellenistic philosophers, and that's why. But like when we talk about Aristotle and Plato, and this is philosophy, and then this is what he tried to teach and what he tried to make a theory. We cannot explain him like this, but he had a lot of innovation, and then tried to kind of adopt in their country, right? That is his contribution. So look at this. His extensive writing included treatises, and then rhetoric, philosophy and politics, and he is considered one of Roman's greatest orator and prose stylist. So it means that even though he tried to put his philosophy in the writings, but it's a little bit different from the traditional philosophers. So Cicero is the one who introduced into Latin the argument of the chief school of Hellenistic philosophies. He is the one who introduced the Hellenistic philosophy to Romans and created a Latin philosophical vocabulary. Like he used evidentia and then humanistas and then quality. He kind of used the kind of terms, philosophical terms in his writing and introduced in his writing. That's why he's really important figure in Roman philosophy. Think about it, and he invited and then some Hellenistic philosophers, and when they traveled to the Romans, and they taught, right, and influenced a lot. His philosophy is based on the academic skepticism. So just remember that one. And BC 87 was Philo. Philo was the last head of the Platonic Academy at the time, and Cicero kind of inspired by extraordinary zeal for the philosophy. So he was kind of really inspirational, inspired by the heroes, but still, he at the time, that's why he observed a lot of Carnedia's kind of academic skeptical philosophy. So he said that Plato's dialogues he used kind of his method and his language, right? Plato's. And he is a politician, but he is a Republican. He's a little different from the kings and other governors. And Cicero is frequently despaired of the state of the republic. The republic, and we select one of our representatives and let him kind of reign the country, but he's really disappointed of maybe there's idealism, ideas there, but he's really despaired, disappointed, and writing philosophies provide both consolation and resources that mean that one of the kind of so writing books and writings, and so I'm not gonna be the part of that and then just to take a break from them and then try to look up the idea that they can go, right, and tour. So he believed that the philosophy is kind of help with improve a political crisis, which is really idealist. I think. Just think about nowadays we have extreme polarization in America, and then what kind of philosophies can give them idea to resolve the crisis? I don't know. personally, I'm really skeptical about what's going on in America, but still, I don't know what kind of philosophies can help the kind of American culture nowadays, and then just think about it, and just philosophy or religion and any other things can help America to be united again. I don't know. There was truly union between kind of parties, and then anyway, always they have their own agenda, and then there's a thesis, antithesis, and things, synthesis, and that is kind of create another things and kind of developing that direct, right? And we are not sure, but still that he's hoping, he hoped that, Cicero hoped that maybe philosophy helped his country to be settled well. Yeah, so one of these writing that Cicero kind of an interesting philosophical figure is kind of he had conviction that philosophy has the potential to change lives and make society better. Can you see that? He's kind of one of the philosophies between kind of Hellenistic philosophy to the Roman society. That's his conviction. And this belief in philosophy's practical purpose explain how much, why, and so explain why the Cicero's philosophy production has a broadly ethical and political orientation. That's the basic his conviction, right? And there is a lot of debating. And when you go to church and when you go to academy, there's a practical part and there's a theoretical part. And sometimes, scholars really focus on the theories and then develop the theory, but practitioners, like in church, pastors, how can they apply this theory in their cultural context and situational context? And then if there is no communication, like as Cicero believed that philosophy helped the changes lives and political societies better. And if they don't have, and then a lot of practitioners, they ignore the theoretical part. And theoretical part is going to give the direction. And it's not just formulating something and think about the logical process. And then sometimes nowadays, and they observe the phenomena and then try to develop this theory. But if you ignore the theory, and then like Cicero, who really had conviction in philosophy, if you ignore the theories and philosophies and kind of losing the direction of the way, and then just try to make a remedy for the situation that you are in. So who can see that and really and getting times going by, and then really, I don't mean that the Greek philosophy, Hellenistic philosophy is not we're not interested in ethics, but still the Roman philosophers more inclined to emphasize on ethics, practical aspect. Here is one of the Cicero's purpose in writing philosophy is to bring the best of the Greek philosophical inheritance to wider Roman attentions, and that does not mean that his work on simply philosophical manuals to be absorbed by the leadership, their leadership? No. So the Cicero's philosophical outcome is that what? He takes seriously and critically the question of the relationship between abstract idea and the what? Culture and tradition of practical society. So his basic idea of the philosophy is based on the what? Based on the academic skepticism, and they don't deny the academics didn't deny what the existence of God, but still they are thinking it's really there is a truth. How? Like keep asking and question, think about it. And even though they don't say that, we cannot explain anything as a truth, as a truth, it's not that one, but still keep thinking, and but it's hard to explain. That is the truth. His basic foundation of the academic skepticism, and then his writing is not just to appeal to the people's kind of feelings and people's kind of intuition. That's he said that's a seriously, critically examine and then try to write and apply, right? That's his tendencies. And here is, and his philosophical composition spells out this approach in two important connected ways. And then here is some idea that people are talking about. Here is, and then they are by the large written in dialogue form, and the scholars about Cicero. His adoption of the form in part reflects his admiration for Plato, who he considered the greatest of his philosophers. That's one of the Cicero is kind of reflecting the Platonism, right? And now Cicero's relationship to the Plato is a complex one. A lot of scholars said, and he used the dialogue from form from the different from Plato, manifesting itself principally in opposed set the speech rather than rapid back and forth exchange. So, but he used the form of Plato's dialogue, but it's not a back and forth communication, but a little bit opposite way that he took it, right? And maybe come back and maybe a little bit different way than you think about putting the outcome first and then talk and like this, and then that's Cicero. So, and he's one of really this one is the scholar said how he reflected the Plato's philosophies in his philosophies, but still he has his own things. Cicero also invoked the dialogues of Aristotle, of the early Plato philosophies. Now, another one is Plato is really really idealistic, but he kind of influenced by the Aristotle, and the mean that Aristotle is really emphasized and kind of a little bit opposite side and then experience, and that's why Cicero has both kind of influence. So here's Heraclitus of the Pontius has influence on him. He is kind of influenced by Aristotle and philosophy, and then his spectrum of the dialogue over the straight treatise shows the Platonic motive of engaging leaders in active philosophical inquiries, and it means that still he had Aristotle's influence and Plato's influence, but his main philosophical the ideas were influenced by Platonism. It's the same. So Cicero's allegiance to academic skepticism, and the extent and the nature of this allegiance is just think about here it is, and a matter of the debate, but one matter for the present purpose is the skeptical stance taken as made to believe that certainty is possible. And maybe certainty is there, and it's possible, but not really though. That's a basic skepticism, right? And the most one can do is form of judgment. This is maybe misspelled. A judgment that some particular position is more or less plausible than other. So such a judgment itself being revisable in the light of the further evidence or argument. So try to see which one is plausible, right? Which one is plausible. That is the kind of he's not an extreme skepticism, and then just think about when you talk about something, and then which one is better, which one is kind of plausible, and that's a judgment that people use, but still follow the plausible and evidence, and then keep arguing, and then choose the better one. That is kind of a way that people can do, but still it means that he doesn't deny there is no certain certainty of knowledge. It's a little bit moderate. So a lot of scholars and then present about divided his life two periods. And one is kind of around 54 and 51, and then later, and kind of two periods are really different. The first period is related to a lot of political aspect, and second part is period a little bit philosophical emphasis is there, and that's a kind of a different things. And then it's really first period is like 51, 54 to 52, and then writing of the two main work of the political philosophies and Republican and the law. So really based on the Plato's archetypes. What's archetype? And just just think about how Plato is going to explain the truth. What is the idea? There is kind of pure, the form of idea. That is a kind of pure form of their knowledge, and try to, that one is kind of, it's an absolute things, and try to explain when he applied this concept into his philosophies. And second period after this one, and this is BC, and then it's kind of later, like 40, 45, and it's really, kind of focus on writing on the philosophies, right? That is a kind of a different from his life. What is his, and in the beginning we talk about the purpose of philosophy, and then philosophy can change people's life, and then what? Make the society better. So his work on the ethics and theories, here is one end or one more end, and he said that the most vivid example of his use of the spectacle method to engage critically with the question about nature of philosophy itself. And I already told you about what is the baseline of the philosophy, right? And then that is about what are the highest good, the attainment which bring about happy human life. That's kind of his questions. So Cicero is kind of considers three leading ethical theory of his day, and Epicureanism, propose that pleasure is the highest good, pleasure. And their life is really simple, but they acknowledge the sense of happiness of sense. You feel, you eat, you see, and then the Stoicism is a little bit different. Their happiness to be aligned with nature. There's being love natures, and then you are aligned with them, and you're gonna be happy. That's a happiness. So Stoicism is which hold that virtue is not just the highest, but the only good. It's not highest one. Highest one is one aligned with nature. And the theory of this, old academy, that one is, really skepticism is, here is and including good other than the virtue within the concept of a supreme good. So ranks virtue higher than the rest. So really emphasize the virtues in skepticism. That is so. You can see three different kind of happiness in from the philosophies, right? But at that time, Cicero kind of ignored all these philosophies, but his basic stance is based on the what? His stance is based on the academic skepticism. Again, so he used Plato's kind of the form of the Plato's dialectics. And Cicero shows that he just followed the Epicurean heroism, but he kind of look at this, and then he's really kind of opposite opposite to his public interest ahead of his own pleasure. So he's kind of against he's contrary to the Epicurean prescription of the happiness, which really centered on self. Yeah, that's the basic his idea, but here is that he set out the preface of his work of the philosophical theology on the nature of the gods, and his work set himself is linked by him to the specific approach of the academic skepticism. So whereas academic skepticism, still was absolute truth kind of seems impossible, but there is open to about absolute being, right? But radical pluralism is they ignore nowadays atheists, right? They ignore the existence of as absolute being, Let's see. What about, that's Cicero. Just remember that he introduced Hellenistic philosophy to the Roman society, and then, but still, the purpose of philosophy is really practical, such as emphasizing ethics, right? But it's not an abstract theory and knowledge, but still it can change people's life and make society better. That's his basic conviction. What about the Titus? Lucretius. And Titus, Lucretius Carlos, and then he is around 99 to 55 BC. So exactly we don't know, but still around the time. And then he was kind of Roman poet. It's not and philosophers, and then sometimes and they express the philosophical idea in different way. It's like a poem. He's a poet. His only known work is a philosophical poem, like a De Rerum Natura. That is didactical work about the tenet and the philosophy of Epicureanism. And it means that he is a philosopher, Epicurean philosophers, right? Let's see. And then Lucretius, has been credited with originating the concept of the three age system that are formalized. And I don't know whether you guys, when you study the history, and there is the Stone Ages, Bronze Age, and Iron Age, and they how to use the tool and then divide the histories. He's the one that created this one. It's very insightful, right? And Stone Ages, and they used kind of they used stone, bronze, and then iron, and that shows how society and civilization is developed. And this one is on the nature of things, translated here. In English was considered influence of the August poem, or the philosopher August poem, and particularly Baudelaire, and less extended, and Horace. And then later on, his idea, his philosophy is kind of Augustine, who's follows Augustine's, and then Virgil, and then Horace. It gives them a lot of influences, and maybe we can see who they are later, maybe Augustine. And this is a guy, Borgio Brasiliolini, and then he rediscovered his philosophies and then reorganized. And this one, so it's like he's kind of work really hard, and then later on there was influence of a great figure of the Enlightenment era to construct new Christian humanism. With this one, so eventually his ideas and then kind of used in Enlightenment era for the Christian thinkers. Lucretius' scientific form on the nature of things is a remarkable description of Brownian motion of the dust particle, and he used this as a proof of the existence of the atoms. And a little bit, the Epicureans is an atomist, and try to explain with how the atom is a particle and collide and change and together and then make it new things. And then that is their explanation. It's about so the Ratura is on the nature of the things. There is, I already told you right before, the atomism and cosmology, and he's dealing with the kind of stuff there. And then, Lucretius was the first writer known to introduce Roman leaders to Epicurean philosophies. Okay. The poem is kind of 7,400 dactylics, hexameters, and divided for 6 untitled books, and explores Epicurean physics through the rich poetic language and metaphors. And so already, so Cicero is kind of uses skepticism, academic skepticism, but and Titus and Lucretius, and he practiced and introduced as a Epicurean philosophy to Romans. I'm not going to give you a lot of detail, but here is some of the. Lucretius presented the principle of the phenomena, the principle of the atomism, the nature of the mind and soul, and then explanation of sensation and thought, and the development of the world and its phenomena, and the explain of the variety of celestial and terrestrial, the heaven and earth and phenomena. It's really scientific. But if you are interested, and then maybe you could read English version, and then the universe described in the poem operate according to this physical principle guided by the fortuna, chance, not the divine intervention of the traditional Rome deities. And religious explanation of the natural world. Can you see that how there is a, and Rome's traditional Rome's, deities and then kind of, idols are different from their one. And he's kind of, used a little bit, probability, and it's really different from the Stoicism. And Stoicism is really fake, right? So, and he opened the door for the kind of, little bit, evolutions. And the early thinker in what grew to become a study of evolutions, Lucretius believed that nature experiment endlessly across the eons in atoms, and the organisms that adapt best to their environment to have the best chance of surviving. It's similar to the Darwinism, right? Well, it's not a Darwinism though. But his basic idea is like, adjust to the environment and survive, right? That nowadays we call them micro evolution, and macro evolution is different. So I agree that one. So if you go to different environment, your body need to adjust. From macro evolution, that people are believing that like we are the descendant of monkeys, like this, and we categorize different species, right? And monkeys different species from the white human being, but so the macro evolution is the kind of people kind of developed by from the amoeba. Basically, that's why maybe it's a lot of he gives them influence in Christian humanism. And here is another kind of explaining that just if you live in if you grow in, maybe you grown up in China, Korea, in America, whatever, and just think about weathers and think about a whole environment that you are in, and then if you move to like West Africa or the North, on a totally different area. So it's not a 1 day, 2 day, 1 year, several years work, but your body, if your body doesn't apply, kind of adapt to the environment, it's sick and then it's fatal. I can see a lot of missionaries and then just among the Korean missionaries, and they moved to other countries, and then it's hard to adapt to their culture. But think about, especially eatings is different from their original habit, original things, right? And if you want to live in the countries, you got to adapt the all things, or how the native people are eating and living. But if you bring your kind of value of Korean eatings and all kind of stuff to live in the way, basically it's hard to live with them because there is resources not available. Your body doesn't adapt there, and then the missionary gonna be sick and sometimes fatal. That's one of the example there. And he said it. There is kind of a change to adjust to the environment, but still he denied it. But open the door to the what is evolutionism. So one thing I found whenever I read kind of philosophy books and other books, like to think about there is no new things. It's like you cannot bring out anything, bring out something from nothing. There is someone who observe things and think about and say something, and the idea who really want to pick up the idea and then kind of develop, see the different environment and different error in different errors, and then maybe ideas developed and developed, right? And if you read the academic papers and see how the ideas develop, it's really interesting. And people don't study already someone did, and then study about they didn't, but the influence on the studies and the different area, little by little, and kind of the study areas like widened and then developed and more inclusive, right? Like this. So he said natural philosophy of Lucretius typified one of the most known teleological and mechanism account of the creation and evolution life. The teleological is kind of everything is moving on the purpose, some purpose. So he did not believe that new species evolved from the previously existing ones. That is a basic idea. But try to understand the world in Epicurean's kind of atomism, right? That is just really big things. And here it is, and despite of his advocacy of the empiricism is based on the observation and experience, right? It's a different, I mean, the Aristotle is really abstract and ideal, but Plato, Aristotle is like empiristic. He emphasized experience and then observation, right? He's kind of about kind of gas and thinking about atomism and nature of the physical world, and Lucretius concludes this book stressing the absurdity of the spherical Earth theory. It means that sometimes you cannot explain in logic, in reasoning. Absurdity. That's the kind of a limitation of science. When you study science, always a lot of times when you experiment and you try to prove it, you limit everything, right? And if you don't, and then you cannot explain thoroughly. But there's a lot of variables that influence on that. That's why a lot of people believe the absolute being who controls everything. He kind of acknowledged that empiricism cannot explain everything. I agree with him. It's amazing to think about. And Darwinism is coming out and but modern era. But think about how the idea is kind of already had like BC, like 50 years ago, 50, right? 50. Yeah, so another philosopher who was Seneca. Seneca is like there's a father Seneca and younger Seneca, and then usually we say the philosopher Seneca, and then this is the guy, younger. The Lucretius is a Stoic, Epicurean philosophers, and he got idea from the Epicureanism and the Epicureanism, but Cicero is a kind of academic skepticism. What about the Seneca is a little bit different from Stoicism. His idea from the Stoicism, and he was a Roman Stoic philosopher and statesman and dramatist, and he's a satirist from the and post Aborigines and Latin literature. So he's really kind of like a scholars in philosophies in literatures. So he is like BC 4, like Jesus Christ time, and BC 4 and then 65 AD mean that, and just think about Jesus Christ born, and then he passed away, and then kind of in the early churches developed at the time, and you can see it. And he was born in Cordoba in Hispania, Hispania around 84, and raised in Rome, and he was trained in the rhetoric and philosophies. Seneca was exiled to the island of Corsica under Emperor Claudius, maybe, but he came back later around 49 to become a tutor to the Nero, Emperor Nero. And when Nero became an emperor in 45, and then Seneca became his advisor, I don't know. Emperor. He's a really crazy guy who was persecuted and killed a lot of Christians, and then his advisor, Nero's advisor, and then together with the and we with the Praetorian prefect sectors, Africanized rulers, and then provided competent government for the first 5 years of Nero's reign. And so his life is really attached with Nero, and then his influence over the Nero declined with the time because his period is not that long. In 65, Seneca was forced to take his life for alleged complicity in the prison conspiracy to assassinate Nero. And so even though he was innocent, but he had another time to, and his stoic and calm suicide has been the subject of numerous paintings. So in the beginning, Marx is really good, but when it's once the philosophers and towards the Nero is kind of declined with the time, and then his life is the same as like that. So Seneca is known for his philosophical work and for his plays and dramatist, right? He's dramatist. These are all the kind of tragedies. It's not a happy thing and then tragedy. And his past work include dozens of essays and 124 letters dealing with moral issues. And it's not like abstract things, moral issues, right? And these writings constitute one of the most important bodies of primary material for ancient Stoicism. And we can say that he's a philosopher in Stoic philosophers. Prominent Stoic philosophers in who's developing the Stoicism in Roman period. So as a tragedian, and he's best known for plays such as his Medea, Thyestes, and then Phaedra. So he's the greatest philosophers and writers and literature, and here is during the Renaissance, he was the sage admired and venerated as an oracle of morals, even of Christian education, and mastered the literary style and mode and dramatic art. And then his writings, his philosophies, and are very influential, right? So while he was alive, and then his life is really attached with politics, and then around there, and then but not many influence on others. But later on, his influence is really great, right? And really honored by Renaissancists. As a major philosopher figure of the Roman Imperial period, and Seneca's last contribution to philosophy has been School of Stoicism. And his writings are highly accessible, and then he was a subject of the attention from the Renaissance onward by the writers such as Mitchell, Montaigne, and then that's why, and he influenced a lot of on Renaissance thinkers and writers and philosophers. He has been described as a towering and controversial figure of the antiquate and the world's most interesting Stoics. And he's one of the great figures, Stoic philosophers in Roman period. So he wrote a number of the books on Stoicism, mostly on the ethics. And with one work is not rather it's questionnaires, and then on the physical world, and just think about one of the Roman philosophers and Romans kind of basic philosophy is really practical, and that's the I really focus on the ethics. Seneca built on the writings of many of the early Stoics. He often mentions Zeno, Cleanthes, and Chrysippus, and then frequently cite Posidonius, and then so that is Stoic philosophers in Hellenistic period, and then he's really shared his interest in natural phenomena. So what is the basic idea of the Stoicism? Aligned with happiness is what? Aligned with the natural world, right? Natural world, yeah, reigned by the absolute being, divine. There is absolute law is there, and they try to figure it out. But he is still open, he had a contact with the Epicurean philosophies, but he just used the source as ethical maxims, and then he's not just not influential on him, yeah. But he demonstrated his interest in Platonist metaphysics, but the scholars say that he never showed any commitment on that. And look at this. So moral essays are based on the Stoic doctrines, and then Stoicism is a popular philosophy in this period, and many upper class Roman found in it guiding at the frame for the political environment. Do you know how influential? And it was once popular to regard Seneca as being very eclectic in his Stoicism, but modern scholarship views him as a fairly orthodox scholarship, Stoic and free-minded philosophers. But at that time, it's really kind of radical. But nowadays, philosophers, his orthodox Stoics. It means that eclectic means that he influenced by even though it's limited to the Epicureans, but still he had, right? And but he is interested in Platonism, right? Metaphysics. Even though, but his stance is like Stoicism. He's one of the great figure in Roman philosophers. His work shows the ethical theory and practical advice, but Seneca stressed that both parts are distinct but interdependent. Okay, you cannot ignore this one, you cannot ignore this one. They are interdependent. So I totally agree with it. And without theory provides a foundation and directions. And but practice without practice that's theory. It's not influence. Maybe you can enjoy your kind of abstract word, but it's not changing anything. It's not influential to society, like Cicero said. Kind of Cicero's basic convictions. So. Yeah, that's why, and he's really. I think he's a really good insight on that. I agree with that, and his letters to Lucilius and showcases Seneca's search for the ethical perfections, and that's the This one is Lucilius is represented the sort of the philosophers, testament to prosperity. prosperity, right? Seneca regarded philosophy as a balm for the wound of life. The destructive passion, especially anger and grief, must be rooted or moderated according to the reason. So just think about how disturbed the kind of passions. Stoics basically always balance kind of try to put aside the sense, and then was reason is a kind of guide to the truth, right? Reason is really guided. So he discussed the relative merit of the contemplative life and active life, and he considered it important to confront one's own mortality and be able to face death. Because that one is kind of give people had a lot of fear of death, right? Mortality. And that's why if you think about your life, we don't know when we're gonna exist in the world. And there is kind of a word in Korean, and then you came first, but there is no order to die. Even though I'm old, maybe you are young, and you might be dying earlier than I do, right? That's why, and he said contemplative life and an active life, right? And then helps you calm down and think about who you are and try to be aligned with the nature. And then, this is a part of a human's life, and then you can be free from the fears and anxieties. Here is there, and then another kind of practical part of philosophy. He said one must be willing to practice poverty, kind of try to empty yourself. When you are greedy, and then always think about how much you want to make, but still more. It's not a life that to be happy. And then he said must use the wealth properly, not for luxurious life, and not to ravish all things. But he writes about favors and clemency and importance of friendship and the need to benefit others. And that is a basic idea about how can you live healthy in the world. I know it's a different way that really from the religious people, but still we cannot say that philosophy is not philosophy is really against the religion, not really. And if you see sometimes religion borrowed a lot of method and word from philosophy to express as the absolute being, and sometimes the way of life. Here is the universe is governed for the best by a rational providence, and this must be reconciled with acceptance of adversity. And it means that sometimes we had better things, but we don't know, it's hard and we angered and then we try to kind of, it's not easy to accept it, but he said that's a part of the national providence. And that's why you gotta take the adversity. Relate to his ethics, ethics. One of the Gallius Mussolini's, Lupus. Lupus is kind of Roman Stoic philosopher of the 1st century AD, and like the reason that I don't just talk about the play, ancient philosophy, so I wanna kind of move on to Hellenistic philosophy and the Roman philosophers, and because just Christianity is born is like a 30 year, like after Jesus Christ died on the cross, and it's early 1st century. Early first centuries and Christian is born, and then I wanna see how the world. I know the philosophy is based on the Christianity is based on from Judaism, but still at that time there is a lot of debatings about the faith and Jesus Christ, the nature of Jesus Christ, the nature of God, and then that's why we wanna see what's going on around the period, and then just wanna see the time and what's going on around the period in terms of philosophy of thought. He is a Stoic philosopher, and then he taught the philosophy in Romans, taught the philosophy in Rome during the reign of the Nero. It's the same as Seneca's, right? Seneca's. Was sent to exile around 65, returned to Rome only under Galba. He was allowed to stay in Rome, and he was Vespasian. When Vespasian banished all other philosophers from the city around 91 AD, and he was banished. Anyway, he was banished as well, but returned after Banishion's death. So here's some lectures on survival, and then here is some ideas that what his philosophers from the Epictetus, and then Chrysostom. There is another kind of philosophers, but that is his kind of they are mentioned about, and then maybe they have his essays, and there is 21 discourses known. It's really interesting topics, because why I bring these topics, and you consider whether they're interested. I know still they are interested in logics and metaphysics, right? And epistemology is kind of related to logic, but ethics, and another part of the philosophy is ethics, and here is some idea about his talk about food, and then he's talk about should every child that is born be raised. Here is another one, interesting one. on cutting the hairs. And the marriage and handicap for the pursuit of philosophy. Is marriage and handicap for the pursuit of philosophy. It's a life, it's a lot of different on training, and still the women should study philosophies, and it really related to the current life. And that's really interesting, right? So his philosophy is kind of identical with his Epictetus' strong practical tendency, right? His philosophy shows a strong practical tendency. We already showed the topics, the discourses. Look at this, what he said. And the philosophy he would have anyone cultivate is not it's not just a matter of a word and of instruction or the schools. It's not just knowledge. And but the one that everybody their own reflection and practice may pursue for himself. So philosophy, it's not a matter of they are just talking and theories, right? So he considers the becoming a philosopher to wear the philosopher's robe and to allow the hair to grow. It's, just think about image of philosophers, and maybe Plato is kind of consider any big long hair, but Aristotle a little bit long hairs and sometimes, and then to retire from the general society, and then is convinced of the power of philosophy over the mind of people. By philosophy, he hoped that healed all the corruption of the human mind. And so, Stoic philosophy means what? It's really based on the reason, thinking. It's not just a saying that follow your sense. Still, that's why he really has positive expectation from philosophy, right? So his philosophy consists entirely of the rules of the conduct of life. All knowledge ought to be serviceable to actions. Do you agree with it? And he does not reject the logic, but he regards it as a proof of the weak mind to decline to examine the fallacy which perplexes, right? You could also examine which one is good or not. And he expresses discourse at the multitude of dogmas which reflect the vanity of the surface. Just think about the sophists. They use the kind of dialectic, and then there is no absolute truth, and depends on the situation if this is good or not. That's trying to make their own logic based on their talking discussions. And who can say how he has kind of how much his philosophy is aligned with the Stoicism, and he gives only little attention to the physical doctrine of the Stoicism, but he asserts that the God knows all things without need of reasoning, since to them nothing can be obscure or unknown. That's a cause, right? So one of of Stoicism's contributions, maybe positive and negative, to like open the door to what? Pantheism. Look at this. God knows everything. It's not absolute God that we believe, Christian believe, and the human soul he considers to be akin with this God. And agree with the other Stoic that soul is material, and then after being corrupted by the bodily influence, soul is and what? Maybe again purified and cleansed. It's a perishable, but he said what? A little bit different, and maybe purified and cleansed again. So he strongly asserted the liberty of the rational soul, right? And that's the purpose. And so he really pay attention to the ethics and other logic and physics, right? And philosophy is nothing else than the investigation and practice of what he becoming and obligatory. It's a really emphasis, right? And then philosophy is just a pursuit of a virtuous life. It's not just theory. And he requires that all the people, both men and women, should be cultivated philosophy, right? He the discourse and can woman study the philosophy like this, and that is his one of the title. And just think about society is really man-centered society. Like still a lot part of the world, and then you can see by Christianity. From the rest of Judaism and really man-centered society, patriarchal society, and my culture, and Korean still, same, and China is the same. It's kind of most collective society is kind of a patriarchal society, but he said there's a little bit different. The man and women. Should cultivate philosophies that are only sure road to virtue. And he agreed that it is to follow follow their own natures, and the only great impediment which can be bound to a truly moral life is prejudice. Prejudice. It's a big thing. With which the mind is filled with from the childhood. That's the evil habit conformed by the practice. That's what he's really think about the prejudice, and then maybe he opened the door a little bit right for the woman. He regards philosophy as the mental art of healing, some mental exercise, but it's heal your mind and lays great stress on the practice of the virtue, right? And it's very good for the teaching, for the practice. But that is his philosophy and groupings. And we can see that so far we saw that the philosophers and four philosophers, and they are really mostly emphasize. Some of them they don't even a little bit less emphasize on the theory, but they use the theory, the philosophy to application, but sometimes words like Seneca is kind of emphasized the theory. Without theory, we cannot have any practice like this. And then in Roman period, and philosophers really emphasize on the ethics. So they developed the ethics. But ironically, do you know why the Romans kind of collapsed? And one of the reasons is kind of really unethical on society. Just think about, and sometimes they pursued what's really want to, and but the other side, kind of people do the same things bad, say, oh, you should have done that, you shouldn't done that, but the other side, some of them doing same things. So sometimes that's a human tendency, and but sometimes it's really ironic. And I'm gonna stop here today. I maybe two more philosophers to go over. Maybe we have another next time to go over the Roman philosophers, and then we can talk about them. So even though we cannot see detailed philosophies, and then I already told you, and then I got the most of the kind of resources from the books and from the kind of Wikipedia's, and also the dictionary of philosophy, Stanford Dictionary of Philosophy, and then there is kind of ideas about I don't use the kind of most of them from there, and then but I don't use the statement without any citation. So mostly people already scholar and publish and agreed, and then I use the idea and then kind of teach you guys, and then so I don't much of a deep knowledge of these philosophers, and then but I try to. That is not the main focus on this class. The main focus on this class is about we're gonna spend 3 weeks on the Christians kind of thought in the early period. So we can see that one. So we can see how Christianity is developing the doctrines, and then that is the purpose of seeing the Roman ancient philosophies, to understand the Christian thinkers, early Christian thinkers. Okay, so if you have any suggestions, let me know, and then maybe I could introduce the Roman philosophers next week, and then jump into our own topics. So maybe if you why I'm talking about the main things, and we're gonna still bring about the kind of philosophies at the time is flourishing in Roman period and early Christian period. Okay, and it's not kind of open it's not easy class. Maybe open your mind to other things, and then boring, but still it's a really interesting thing. We can see because we can see people who cannot. We can see philosophers already had an idea about other things that we cannot imagine. Kind of discovering. That's really interesting. Okay, you guys, and I hope that you can kind of understand a little bit about the philosophy, and then kind of framework, and at least what is the direction of the philosophies, and how they kind of which school they belong to. Maybe then gives you a little idea about the philosophies, and then so if they have different same things, and then try to share their philosophy with you guys. Okay, have a great week, and then still take care of yourself very well. And weather is really good compared with Phoenix and what is the Omaha, Nebraska. California is the best. Enjoy the weather. Okay, have a good week. And see you next week. After